Try again. Good morning, Len. Can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. All right, we're starting a few minutes behind schedule. Some technical difficulties, as often is the case when dealing with Zoom and various gizmos. So thanks for your patience.
No problem. Sounds like we are ready to start,
But no qualms.
but no quorum, unless Lynn Cootie is
Not Lynn Blevins.
not Lynn Blevins. Okay. Um, great, then let's recognize we don't have a quorum, so we'll get through various parts of the agenda as we can. And let's start with a review of the minutes.
So we
Great.
can't
Yeah,
We
won't
can't
have to
approve them, but we can
approve
still
them.
talk about them.
Right. Exactly.
That is fine.
I guess I'll start, actually, are there any public comments? I'm not familiar with who that is. She's associated with the number on the agenda. Are there public comments? Okay. Then we'll just get into the agenda. I thought the minutes were a good reflection of the discussion. With both the applicant and Arrowwood. So I did not have any comments or questions about this agenda topic, but I realize it's important for us to get this one right. So did anyone else have anything here?
You good, Kim?
No, I have nothing, and I once again will say I think your minutes are
Impeccable.
chef's kiss.
Great. Wonderful.
Very nice.
Does anyone need to see them? I can share a screen if that's.
I looked at them previously.
So I think without a quorum, though, we will not be able to approve the
Yeah.
minutes, but
Yes.
but
Just
Okay,
appreciate the accurate, concise
Yeah.
notes.
yeah. Definitely don't need a transcript of the meeting, but the sort of takeaways of what
Yeah.
was decided and if there were any key discussion points.
Good.
Agreed, looking good. Okay, so then let's table the chair and vice chair discussion because we only have our chair and vice chair here and one other member.
Right,
So
that's fair. So yeah, just I was just myself reviewing our policies, so it's annual election of chair and vice chair. There's also theoretically a secretary, although that doesn't really get done.
When was the last time
Since I was around, because Melinda was, by that point, we had solid staffing. I think there was a time where we didn't, and we had to take some of our own.
well, that was
Minutes.
before me.
Yeah, I think that was, Gary was talking about that like back in the day.
So is the goal this year for you to rotate off and for me to rotate into chair and then to have, or do you want to continue?
I was assuming that this would be a 2-year thing and then we rotate.
Okay,
I'm comfortable with that, but if you want to rotate in.
no, I don't want to. Great, all right.
Yeah, and if anyone's willing to continue in your roles,
Yeah.
then that's also fine, as long as that's consensus to the group. So
Yeah, can we vote on that? Next,
yeah, we can
in
address
2
that
weeks,
next week.
say Dave and Kim talked about this and Kim will actually vice chair this year.
Well, as long as other folks are willing to nominate.
Well, Yeah, and I think that makes sense, and I also think, in the past, we've tried with new members to not throw them into
Yeah,
the tank. So somebody like Lynn, who just joined,
although she would be very confident.
yeah, she'd be very competent. I have no doubt that she could do it, but it's a lot to pay attention to.
Yeah.
At first, so I think it's good if, in a year, she might be a candidate to.
It sounds
be vice
about how long
chair.
you gave me.
Here, you get a year to kind of get settled in and then maybe be vice chair, so you can start thinking about.
That's what I did.
What the chair does and.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in the next meeting. I know Lynn will definitely, I'm sorry, Laura will be back. She's in Alaska right now,
Mhm.
so. let's move on to the conservation planner updates.
Okay, great. So a whole bunch of things since we've taken, we had the summer recess on August 6th. So I got lots of small updates. Real quick, looking back to, we didn't get a chance to review this last time, but looking back to our discussions about funding from fiscal year 25, the Conservation Commission essentially elected to put its support behind 4 projects, so 2 Eagle projects, each of which will cost between $500 to probably $1,200. Very different projects. One was trail work. That one's now wrapped up. That was putting some punching in on Mud Pond on the east side, and then the second one is going to be putting a new kiosk at the trailhead for Sucker Brook to replace the sign that rotted out. And that one is yet to start. Will most likely be a late fall start. That one might end up going into next spring, depending on the students' availability.
In the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the hope would be to get the posts in the ground before the freeze, and then potentially might even be able to work on it over the winter if weather cooperates, but we'll see. So that was all. We were able to put those funds towards those projects. Other things that you were supporting was some funding for the pollinator garden initiative. We were able to put some funding towards that project. And we recently printed some lovely signs for the pollinator gardens, upgrade the sort of aesthetics of the signage that's out there, but also more importantly, just to draw people's attention to what's going on out there. And we'll also be able to provide some upgraded fencing. In addition to that, Parks and Rec is jumping on board. They have 2 spaces just outside the bathroom. You can see there's sort of a ring of stones where there's nothing planted.
Yeah, actually, my kid was like, "Is this new? Like, is this like newly getting landscaped?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah. So they'd like to put in some pollinator gardens in those little spaces. Each one, I was looking at them yesterday, they're about 6.
And rain barrels as well,
Yeah,
as I
rain
understand
barrels.
it, so the runoff from the roof of the
Mhm.
bathrooms will be collected. And then the rain barrels will be used to
How
water
are
the
you
gardens.
connected to this project?
Sustainable Williston is, helps with the regular pollinator gardens, so there's been some dialogue between. Those who have been leading the existing demonstration garden. Which Parks and Rec helped us prepare for. And help make sure that staff knew how to like mow around it and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and then David and. And so we could talk about signs, and then also, Parks and Rec brought it up and said, hey, would you guys be willing to help maintain some additional locations where.
That's great.
Or help us plan what to put in. In terms
Free labor for that.
a bit, although they also have, I would say Parks and Rec is, they're into it. They're willing to put some money into purchasing plants. They'll do the,
Cool.
help with the install and, purchasing the rain barrels, getting those hooked up and everything. So I think, it's a good level of partnership between conservation, parks and sustainable Williston.
Not to add like stuff to do, but it'd be cool if we got like school kids to paint the rain gardens.
That would be cool. Yeah, the kids have been involved with the existing pollinator garden, and I think that's still sort of part of the plan, is to see if some of the classes at WCS, for instance, want to go out and do weeding,
Yeah,
weeding day to learn about the different plants that are in the garden
Yeah.
and things like that.
we had a group of K through 12 students in the SUNY school district create a rain garden and make a rain barrel for it and paint it, and it came out so cool. Like,
Yeah, I
we gave
think
them like
painting would be really cool too.
0 instruction, just like paint and make a scene together collaboratively, and they were incredible, high school students.
It's also quite the happening place with the new pavilion that they
Yeah.
went up, so it's kind of, and last year the basketball hoops went in, which one got vandalized.
Oh, really?
Yeah, somebody threw a rock through the glass and broke it,
Just
Yeah.
recently?
6 months ago.
Oh, I would guess.
Yeah,
I
in the-
was
in the early
probably
spring.
Not here for that.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because they were brand new basketball hoops and they were getting a lot of use. And then they had to block off the court completely, and then they cleaned it up and now it's usable, but only half court. But anyway, but it's quite a happening place with new basketball court and and now the new pavilion, and then there's gonna be these new gardens and rain barrels, and it's gonna be quite fixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's been great to have Reed involved with, as both a member of the CC and member of Sustainable Williston. And Deborah Michio has been leading that project, so we'll Deborah will be putting out the signs and we'll be talking about finishing the design for the fence and getting some plants to put in those gardens. So that was one project, and then the last area that we were able to fund was the fencing for tree transplants at Tree Island. So that was all successful. We trail counters I looked into. I've been in touch with Kim a little bit about this, but there's a lot more to learn. It turned out to be a much not a product that you can just go on Amazon and order a couple of trail counters. They're made by specialty companies. And
You wanna make sure you're getting the right thing.
yeah, there's more research to be done, so we couldn't fit that in the kind of scramble to use fiscal year 25 line item funds, but
I think we're also at
Yeah.
this point where there's like so many new technologies coming online, like. I just had a colleague who's investing in. Basically like it's almost like the streetlight company where it pulls your zip code off your cell phone when you pass.
well,
So there's like, we're at this like this moment of like rapid advance. That's already in many national parks, FYI. When you like go in, it pulls your
Wow. I didn't know where you're coming from.
off your cell phone.
off your cell phone.
Wow, that's crazy.
We went to Montreal a couple times this summer, so I saw a lot of tech at the entry to the States, and I was like, there's a lot more going on here than just the interview we're about to.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it is like when the park gets it's from a third party company, it is de-identified. But I don't know what the data looks like before
Yeah,
that.
right.
It's possible that a third party company gets like a ton of information.
It's a good point, though, that, and did the Catamount Committee end up getting trail counters this year? I know it was on their
No, it's
agenda.
sort of the same issue, just timing of.
Interest, but not action.
Yeah,
just yet.
interest, but.
However, I have a project and I'm gonna have, I needed to pick sites for, and I just picked Catamount partially because like I knew that they had interest and it's easy to have a team of undergrads, so they'll have undergrads sitting out, like physically sitting at trailheads next summer, counting and like every so many people interviewing, so they should have good data after next summer.
Cool.
At Catamount,
Yeah.
they were so buggy this summer, that is gonna be miserable.
It is gonna be miserable, but you know what? It's gonna be less miserable than sitting in Jake's Rocks, Pennsylvania and Carabasset, Maine, which are the other sites that they have to go.
Yeah. Okay.
That's true.
They're at least close to like Burlington here.
After work, they could do something.
Okay.
Sending
Okay.
you to the hinterlands.
That's good.
My apologies.
Great, thanks for the
No,
funding
yeah,
updates.
Real quick, I'm just acknowledging there's a tiny echo coming from my computer that's throwing me off, and I am
Oh,
completely unable, I'm stymied. I've been unable to disable this, so apologies for that little feedback.
I'm not hearing it.
You're not hearing it?
No.
Yeah, I hear it only minorly. and I
Okay,
would,
good.
like,
I have,
But it
the
does-
sound
yeah.
appears to be disabled, but it's not responding, so.
Goal.
Okay.
All right, on to other things. So lots of little things to talk about. So one, we got a letter from the Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition, VHCC.
Not the conservation board, not the.
Not the Conservation Board,
Yeah.
but maybe related. I'm not entirely clear.
What's that acronym again? I was gonna.
Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition. And this is a membership organization that we've apparently been a member of in the past. Melinda recognized it, was addressed to the Williston Conservation Commission, and the request is for 2026 dues at a recommended level of $325.
Okay.
So it was addressed to the Conservation Commission. I wanted to make sure that was brought up at this meeting. I did talk to Melinda about it.
Housing and conservation.
Yeah, housing.
Which I think that so VHCB, which is Vermont Housing and
Yeah.
Conservation Board. They do a lot of great work that links I mean, like land use and housing are inextricably linked, right? And like conservation necessarily takes land out of the possibility of, well, maybe not necessarily, it contributes to less land for housing. So it makes good sense that they're linked, especially in the state where we have a lot of conservation land and a housing crisis. And they have given us money in the past, for example, for conserving Catamount. I don't I guess without
Yeah.
understanding how this organization connects to that, it's hard to like comment on it, but if it is related to VHC, I feel like they've been an important partner and are doing good work throughout the state.
Yeah, it seems like this needs a little bit more research. Would you like to see the letter? And I found that Champlain Housing Trust was advertising an event that they were doing, but I haven't really been able to, in a quick search here, find who they are.
But if it was addressed to Melinda, it seems like perhaps we've not paid dues in a moment because
I don't recognize that name from the last few years.
So I can do some more research. Yeah, I didn't recognize that
Interesting.
name either. Melinda recommended paying it. We do have a line item in the planning and zoning budget that is dedicated to dues and memberships for various organizations. So assuming this is an organization that we've been contributing to for years, and it's part of that, then
oh,
Yeah,
well, it
it's really
says, okay, it says, yet housing and land affordability crisis continues and the impact of climate change grow more, blah, 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 blah. Yes, we agree with that. Given federal funding cuts and economic uncertainty, we will need to work harder than ever next year to preserve VHCB funding. So that's like that's the
Right.
board that has funded us. So it does sound like maybe this is like the parent organization that.
Yeah, the thing that triggers for me is that they reference the Necrason Group, and I know that the Necrason Group for my professional work, they are a lobbyist firm in Montpelier. So I'm wondering and then when I do look on the Champlain Housing Trust website, probably the same thing, Citizen Lobby Day at the legislature. This might be a lobbying organization, so the dues might be to support legislative activities.
So we might,
Which
would
might
be
be separate from the board because
Yeah.
the board would be a 501c3. This is clearly a lobbying organization.
Okay, so this might be a solicitation. They've
Yes.
named it very carefully.
Or it's like divorced even one step further where like this is the organization and they have lobbyists, like UVM has lobbyists.
Necrason would be a contracted lobbyist, so it's probably fundraising to pay for their services.
I mean, it says these dues pay for the lobbying services of,
Yeah.
so
So yeah, worth further research, but perhaps it's not quite.
it also says members pay blah, 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 based on their capacity and use of VHCB funding. So I feel like it would be important to understand, like, what is this money getting paid for? What are our restrictions?
Right.
And then like, does it change eligibility? If we don't pay dues, are we then ineligible for VHCB
Right.
funding in the future?
I'm not opposed to it, but it also seems like it's also a matter of town policy as to whether.
Right, yeah, that's what I meant by our
Right.
restrictions. Are we allowed?
Lobbying.
Right, okay.
There you are.
Appreciate all the input.
And for whatever it's worth, I know the Necrason Group very well, and they do excellent work.
They do excellent.
Yeah,
Okay.
and very good issues, so.
Okay. All right, well, I will look more into it. Get you some more information. All right, next item. So the Commons Trail has been a bit of there's been a bit of a lag in maintenance out there. The sign for the trail has been down. And the mowing has been a little intermittent. So I'm trying to get a handle on our mowing situation for our primitive trails. Turns out that there was a contract signed before I started that I was unaware of. So there's been some questions about who's mowing and where they're mowing and kind of what frequency. So I'm trying to get all that sorted out.
Wait, this is with Public Works?
This is with a third-party contractor that's been
okay.
going for the town over the last couple of years, but it's unclear whether they did or did not sign a contract for this year, and I've been having trouble getting consistent communication from them, so that's a project that's being sorted out, but we have got some work done on the Commons Trail, and we need to replace the sign that broke down there.
Where's the Commons Trail?
The Commons Trail is off Tower Lane.
Okay,
It's a public trail from an agreement or an easement over that private common land. And it's actually a really nice hike. So it's about a half mile out and back. And the question for you is, we've got a lot of wooden signs that were done with consistent style however many years ago that are starting to fall apart. And does the Conservation Commission want to replace those with same style, same material signs? Or some of the companies that I reached out to for quotes are recommending, alternative materials, and we paint it up to look like a wooden sign, PVC and other, sort of plastic, essentially, products.
so
We had this
we're officially in
conversation.
that era of wooden signs are a thing of the past. So.
Not necessarily, we could order a wooden sign, but we're sort of being encouraged in the direction of things that will last long. So that's kind of a question I thought that the Conservation Commission could weigh in on in terms of.
What's the cost difference?
I have not received a cost difference yet. I requested a quote about just the wooden signs initially. And both companies I reached out to said, what about this? So.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean.
Because I bet they don't fabricate it themselves, right? Like I wonder if it's like actually easier.
Yeah.
I sort of wonder that there's a certain ecological challenge with like PVC. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I sort of don't mind that our signs degrade over time. That's kind of what happens to organic. So, I don't know. That's sort of where my mind goes.
We talked about this last time. Like, I feel like this is making me be like, man, how long have I been on this Conservation Commission? But I feel like we had this conversation as a group when the current signs were ordered.
That may be right. And even with something like the PVC product, like it will probably warp and fade and wear out over time.
Yeah.
And be replaced, but it may last longer. So it is kind of there's not necessarily a definitively
I think we
objective
definitely need
answer.
the price comparison.
Yeah.
Because, if you're talking like same price or 1.25
Yeah.
for something that's gonna last twice as long, then it's a tough decision. If it's like 2 or 3 times as much for the PVC one, I'm gonna be like,
No, let's see if I
yeah.
have that information. I can't remember.
I
which one it
would
was.
guess the wood might be more expensive.
I was gonna say the wood, I
Possible.
think, is more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say though that like from a perspective of if you're trying to create an established look and a consistent look of like you drive by a trailhead and you recognize the font and the color and the paint of the signs. Yeah.
Right, every
right. Yeah, so like there's a consistency to it that like I can
Like a branding aspect.
yeah, like I can appreciate whether that material is PVC or wood. I would prefer wood. I mean, if all things are equal, I just think that's a better look.
I'm really on this kick of like supporting the Vermont. I don't know why I said I'm really on this kick. It's like a multi-decade kick of supporting the Vermont wood products industry. So I feel like I'm
Yeah.
also.
Well, not necessarily clear that this would come from Vermont.
Can we please just hire somebody local?
It's just
I reached out to both local companies, they're both based in Williston. SB Signs,
Yeah.
and who's done signs for us in the past.
I mean, are they just gonna use pressure treated
And
lumber anyways?
what's the other one? Sorry, having
Really
trouble
white
finding.
Pressure treated
You
wood
on the
pine,
search feature
not
of
from here.
Outlook is
Mhm.
just fantastic.
It's not PVC though.
Sometimes I search things, so I'm like, I know this is in my inbox from yesterday, and I know this person sent it to me, and Outlook
It's
is
like
like,
that.
sorry, there's nothing.
Yeah,
Like, oh my gosh, you're such a liar.
I kind of like your comment though, David, about the branding aspect.
Yeah.
Figuring out, so I think about like parks in South Burlington that I drive by. Not that we should be South Burlington, but sometimes they are thinking of things that we come across a couple years later.
They have all new signs.
And all their park signs are all
Yeah.
like uniform, and
Yeah.
I feel like they have like a landscape with like a blue on the
They do.
top and then green on the bottom or something like that. And
Winooski Valley, is that what
No,
it is?
South
South
Oh, South Burlington.
South
yeah.
They're new because there's one I park so far away from my office that I have to like drive by South Burlington. And they have a whole bunch of new ones and it is like this pretty landscape.
So I think if we're gonna, if you think, David, that David M, that
Mhm.
a number of signs are gonna need to be replaced over the next couple of years, it wouldn't be a bad idea to take our time and think about like,
Branding.
what is, are we gonna try to replace with exactly the same thing, or are we gonna have like a new branding that
Yeah.
we want to start propagating across the different signs?
I wouldn't want us to like, on that point. It's a slippery slope to like do something for the Commons Trail and then, oh, well, we did it for the Commons Trail 2 years ago, so now we're gonna do it for the Allenbrook Nature Trail and the bridge. This, it's like, let's do something consistent across
mean,
everything.
The other option that's like to be consistent with what we've done every time we have to
Yeah.
replace something, right? And then it's like maintaining consistency, which is like, okay.
Also has value.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people are used to the look. I'm trying to remember what those signs, like the one, did Sucker Brook have, is the one that went down at Sucker Brook, that was also similar to the Commons, right?
That was larger. That was one, there was sort of a generation of signs, like by pond conservation area signs, just a large rectangle.
Okay.
With all the information.
So, I'm gonna ask that Dave get back to us with this, with the pricing and then we can follow it up with an actual agenda item in the future about like consistency and signage and,
Maybe some
If-
photos of signs from that are
and
dying versus.
a heads up on like what you would anticipate the need for signage going forward sort of looks like.
I mean, the need is that, we'll need to continually, we'll need to replace our signage, universally at some point. We have the Sucker Brook sign that's gonna need to be replaced and that project will be going on this fall. We'll probably be ready for a sign, by early next year.
Comments
Yeah.
ready now.
Yeah, comments ready now. We probably should try to get something up there sooner rather than later, but I think it can certainly wait till next meeting. That's fine.
In looking up the Commons Trail, I also see that Brownell Mountain is listed on the list of trails, in Williston. And it's listed for hiking, skiing and binoculars, so I'm guessing birding.
Oh, on the
Yeah, on the
map,
website.
Yeah,
And,
the recreation map, yeah.
that's
You can
a,
get there.
that's an interesting, I remember seeing this before.
I think it technically,
Yeah,
it is,
There's no
right?
parking.
There's just,
how are you gonna get there?
Mhm. You gotta get yourself to the property.
So if I bike in and trespass on private land, I can get there. Or if I pull off of South Brownell Road and, I don't know.
Okay, all right, so,
I like ran up it one time.
let's move on from that.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of various items. We'll revisit that next time.
Great.
And I'll, hopefully those quotes will come through by then. Let's see, so, 2 weeks back, I went out to take a look at the Fontaine canoe access. There'd been a report, I think the year before, from somebody who was out there at a higher water time of year than I was, that was concerned about erosion and whether it might have an impact on that site remaining accessible over time.
This is the Winooski River.
Yeah.
Canoe access
aspect, yeah.
right in front of the bridge, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was out there in mid-July and, late July, and there were no issues from what I saw. The water was a lot lower, I think, when the report.
Yeah,
or
because if it
inquiry
was 2
made.
years ago, it would have been like either post flood or right, or
Yeah.
post flood.
Yeah. But just simply noting that the river is a very dynamic environment. I would imagine that any day you're there, it can be very different. So I went back one weekend and launched a canoe down the river. And it certainly works at low tide, so I'm not concerned about erosion, but just worth noting that there has been some cutting there. It's sort of an interesting site because you have the river moving through, and then there's a very small tributary that drains off the land. And so while there's been a little bit of erosion of what was the shoreline, there's also been sediment that's been kicked out by that tributary that kind of forms a mud shelf. So at low water, you can simply walk out on the mud shelf and
Put in.
put in where you need to. There's sort of a small beach area but it'll be an area to kind of monitor and moving forward over time, see if it
Mhm.
changes. There's a big stand of knotweed there that seems to be limited in its proximity to the lake simply by ice scour. I doubt that's going to encroach much closer to the lake, but knotweed has
To the
been,
river.
or to the river,
I was like, wait,
Winooski Lake. Uh,
I've never put in my canoe there.
Yeah.
Is it nice?
it was late summer, the drawdown, the water was a little bit scummy in some areas, but the paddling was actually pretty nice. So lots of birds out.
And there's not a heavy current that like fights getting back?
Going upstream, there was a decent current.
Yeah.
I tried to get up a little riffle and just couldn't quite make it at the top, but there was a way I could have gone around if I wanted to continue to Richmond, but I just went up about a mile and paddled back down. So
cool.
I guess when I think about erosion of something like that, my mind just goes to like, when and if we need to rebuild that put in, is it as simple as just like ordering a truck full of something and then
no, yeah,
Or is
it's
it more
it's a fair
specific?
question. I think the two considerations there are simply that it's not town land, it's an access easement.
Okay.
And then that there are regulations with regards to alterations for streams and rivers.
Mhm.
There's a certain limited amount of fill or alterations that you can make without needing to trigger a permit. A certain number of cubic yards of material that you can manipulate. And outside of that, you need to get a stream alterations permit, which I don't know how easy that would be. So
Mhm.
it might be, I bring it up mainly because I think we've been talking a lot about long-term prioritization for trails and access, thinking about land routes. But it's worth noting as we think about strategy that access to the river and launching canoes and landing canoes as well, is something just to have on our radar as we think about different access options that might come up, easements, donated land and such.
Another thing about that Fontaine property is that it has like a fish and wildlife. The property was conserved with fish and wildlife grants, and there's like some restrictions on their land as a result of that.
There is an Act 250 farther out, you mean, with the deer wintering area? Yeah.
That for sure, but I don't know, I just don't know what else, like for like Catamount has a whole bunch of restrictions
Mhm.
on it because of the grants that we got, right? Not because of state, like in addition to state regulation. I don't know, I can't remember everything that is on Fontaine land, but I'm pretty sure there's restrictions from Fish and Wildlife. The deer wintering
Okay.
area is for sure.
I remember from the interview with them a few years ago by UVM students that they wanted to put a cell tower in their silo and they couldn't because of some restrictions.
Yeah, there's some stuff on that. They got some, I think it's Fish and Wildlife money that came with some stipulations.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it may not affect this at all. I just can't remember all the details of it.
Right. Yeah, so that's helpful to know. Yeah, it's a great resource for the community and like any conservation in individual conserved action, it's kind of a unique situation relationship with the family and the town there. So if erosion sort of were to get worse and continue, it might not be the kind of thing where we could simply just reclaim the site by dumping a bunch of sand. It might be, over the long term, we might be looking for other sites. But that's speculation. From what I saw, I think it's simply just going to be like many places on the river, a matter of what season it is, what the water conditions are.
And dynamic.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
dynamic. So
Okay.
no action this time, but I mainly bring it up for thinking about our prioritization long term.
Yeah.
And thinking about different areas that might pop up on our radar with regards to access, knowing that that's the only one in Williston.
We don't have, do we have an updated map of like all recreation activities under our purview? We did one of trails like 5 years ago maybe, but I don't think it included things like like Lake Iroquois and canoe put-ins, and I think it was very much trails, right?
Yeah, I'm in trails, conservation areas and country parks, and it's all about trails.
Yeah, it would be, it's a good point that you bring up, that like, I don't know, what would it look like to think about all of the opportunities that people have in town, and like how are they distributed, and what are they,
Right.
and what benefit do they provide?
Yeah, exactly. I also interviewed just a community member who was putting in a kayak when I was down there. And she noted that that place has a lot of value simply because if you're paddling down from Richmond and you reach, there's inclement weather or something, it's the only place in the area to pull out.
Mm,
So it's a good,
Safety aspect,
right, in terms of just access to the Winooski River. If you look more regionally, there
Yeah.
are only a set number of places that you can put out and put in. So in terms of its contribution to the recreation network on the Winooski River, it's important.
The next place down the line is all the way basically in front of the dam. At Global Foundries in
Yeah.
Essex, yeah.
Yeah, and Essex has talked about, there's been discussions about purchasing a parcel on the opposite side of the river, a little ways downstream, and putting in a canoe launch, but that there's barriers that remain to be seen for that, so.
Okay,
and we don't have any, like, it would also be good for us to the way that we prioritized, like, could we add that as a element of prioritization when we're thinking about conserved parcels, or when we're talking to landowners, like, could we look at properties along the river and be like, where could this, like, if anything ever comes in front of us and we have the opportunity to talk to this landowner
Mhm.
about an easement, like, I don't even have a sense in my head of where those spots are, right? Like,
Right, there's only so many places where you have public access down to the river, period.
yeah,
Or even, public roads that go close. A lot of our borderland, if you look at any of the maps, is large agricultural holdings. So, yeah, but it'd be worth taking a look at, I agree.
well, this is a good discussion, but I also want to be mindful
Yeah,
of our
sorry.
time. There were a couple
always the
other
landscape picture in my head.
wood duck boxes and Allenbrook Bridge.
Oh, yeah, so wood ducks, I'll just mention that,
Is that Mud Pond?
yes, so the wood duck boxes, Reed has finished monitoring for the year and has noted there's a couple boxes that haven't been nested in for years. And as hydrological conditions have changed, it's become more dangerous to get to those boxes. So he'd like to move them and would appreciate volunteer support, potentially from the commission, folks who would be willing to put in some person hours to go out there and help move duck boxes, most likely this fall.
Okay, Kim's in. I see the face.
So
No,
the two boxes at Mud Pond and I think one of the ones that.
I'm gonna tell Alan Strong and see if like the ornithology class.
Wants to come out and move. one
Yeah,
box
that
in.
could be cool. Okay, so
I
yeah,
have actually no idea what he's teaching or if this would work. I'm just gonna tell him.
thank you for keeping us on track here. So let's take a look at the conceptual site plan for the Allenbrook Bridge repair. Pull that up. And share that real quick.
And is CSWD coming to speak with us about a revised site plan?
No, but we'll take a look at it.
Alright.
Okay, so this is what was a proposed conceptual design that was submitted to us from Engineering Ventures, who's been the engineering design team looking at the bridge repair on Allenbrook. I have a site visit this afternoon at 12 with the two state regulators, Tina Heath from the Wetlands Program, Chris Brunel from Rivers and Stream Restorations, and also Representative Engineering Ventures. So I'm very excited about that. It took many weeks of phone calls to put together.
Tina's the coolest person.
Yeah, Tina's great. And that's on the record.
Yeah.
She just also is like a mountain biker and has little kids, and I don't know, I just think like moms who kick butt are the coolest people.
Agreed. So let's take a look at this real quick. So in gray, it's a little tricky to orient you what you're looking at here, but the stream channel is I'm trying to drag my mouse
Yeah.
over what's representing the stream
Mhm.
channel.
They've clearly only done the topo lines where it matters,
Right.
rather than.
Yeah, it's a sketch, really,
Yeah,
conceptual sketch. This here is the secondary channel that opened up, which now is not flowing. The water level is very low out there right now. It's sort of a little backwater pool. And then this is the footbridge or boardwalk. And this is the damaged area that is sagging. And this is where we put our sign that continues to get vandalized every time we put it back out, but that's neither here nor there. Okay,
Who
so
is doing the
I-
vandalization?
Okay, so we're
They're
looking
ripping
north.
down. Yeah, so we're looking north. So the main challenge with this whole conversations that has really slowed things down is we could, of course, we have the right to repair this bridge in the exact same way that it was, in the same alignment, same materials. That would not disturb or ruffle any feathers with regards to regulations. We can always do that. But what we've been trying to do is use taxpayer money responsibly into a full evaluation of whether that is an appropriate thing to do, given the potential for future flooding to just come back and do the same thing. So that's why the engineering team has been looking at different options. Their latest proposal has been to put reinforced, upgraded piles, or whatever you call them, supports, piers. We've talked about that before.
Helical piles, the ones that screw.
Yeah.
We just have to put in for our porch, yeah.
So to put those in, that requires getting some machinery down there. That's gonna be a question for the regulators to answer whether they will allow that.
The machinery that we used at our place a month ago is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
So that's one thing to know is it was basically a robot. Nobody sits on it. They drive it with a remote control, and it's like the size of a cat. Like digger machine, and it goes, and it's like, yeah, it goes wherever they tell it to, and then it has an arm and it's all controlled with a controller. So the person just like walks behind it and like it puts
See,
in.
this is how this like technology that like that, where it's like, well, that's gonna save somebody's arm, right? Like that is how we should be using.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tech Fit Pile, I think was anyway.
So that was size of a cat meow? Like
No,
No,
like
cat, like a bobcat,
Yeah,
the kind that would be like for getting mulch and putting it in.
or snow, the kind that we use to like clear snow off the bike path, right?
Yeah, it's wider than it's wider than a sidewalk. And it is a hefty piece of machinery, but it is not as big as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was gonna be like a mini hoe kind of thing.
Needs
It's gonna
like
be sat in and it's
certification
not
to
that.
drive it, so there's still like a job there. I just love it
Yeah.
when technology is like, well, we did this safer and
Anyway, I
it
just wanted
made a
to
job.
share that.
no, that's great, that's what.
Because I had no idea in my head.
So, so that's gonna be one question for the regulators, with regards to what can be done with getting machinery down in the river and causing disturbance.
Are they deeper? Is that what the upgrade is? They're like-
Deeper and thicker, but
Okay.
the idea being if, that they could. More material could continue to erode out and they would still hold.
To
So-
what extent? Like how much more? Like,
Well,
have we-
that's the biggest question, right? That's just with regards to fixing the damage
Yeah.
section. The rest of the bridge is fine. However, the main concern and the biggest challenge of this whole thing has been that the shape of the river means that it is continually in-cutting towards the rest of the bridge.
Right.
Trying to
So
figure out
this
stuff.
area is under threat. And so if we had just gone ahead and done the repair as is, not only would, this area kind of be vulnerable to falling apart again, but the river is going to continue to undermine the rest of this and we'd be facing another repair.
Sure.
So the engineers have been proposing that we armor a part of this bank to try to prevent that. And that's what the biggest challenge is because anytime you have to put fill in a stream, change the water course, put fill in a wetland, that's permits that are strictly regulated. So that's going to be the biggest question today is what we can do with regards to fill, how that will affect certain permitting thresholds, and whether it is sort of feasible or realistic to use that strategy at all. On this,
This is
Yeah.
such a hard spot because like there's this part of me that's like, I really think that like we should let this go. And then the flip of that is like a lot of kids and families use this. Like so many kids and families.
Yeah.
And it's so much better than going along a road on a sidewalk.
It's
For
like-
safety and enjoyment and everything.
No, so that's what, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, there's like that one strip of sidewalk that's really bad, right? That's like, it would be so easy for a child to be on the bike path and ride there. Like when my kids were smaller, I would be like, you have to ride on the inside, right? Because it would be so easy to just be like, well, out into traffic,
Right.
like wobbly bikes.
Yeah, I think it's, if it was just an isolated nature trail on the other side, that'd be one thing, but the
Yeah.
fact that it's a major
It is
thoroughfare for communities.
Yeah.
We've just seen from the fact that we can't keep people off it despite its clearly decrepit position
Mhm.
and
It's like a miracle actually that no one's been hurt.
yeah. And the continued vandalism, people obviously care about this a lot, they use it. So I think, yeah, I agree, it's kind of a tough position. I don't think it's reasonable to just say, we'll let it go.
But there's nowhere else that we could there's no other spot that we could move it to.
There's no other obvious spot that would be significantly easier. And the fact that much of this is still in, 2/3 of it at least is still in serviceable condition would make that a pretty big price comparison.
Yeah, but we don't wanna do like sunk costs, right? Like
Right.
if there was a spot that was like, oh, well, this would cost a lot more upfront, but it wouldn't erode and it would be safe long, but I'm in my head without seeing the whole thing, I guess isn't a great, but there isn't another spot, is there? Cause
Yeah.
there's houses.
And the floodplain is pretty
Yeah,
wide.
yeah,
So like as you walk along the bike path and you look over and you go, okay, well, where is it close enough that you could actually connect
Right.
there? That's basically the spot.
yeah.
I'll say that based on the sort of knowledge and how you're describing this as like more of a thoroughfare and less than like a sort of out and back nature trail usage. It strikes me as being in need of a more permanent sort of, like almost like a multi-use path level of construction, like the one that crosses the Allen Brook, over by 2A.
Yeah.
That no one uses because the town never invested in making that connection. I literally showed my kid that 2 weeks ago and he's like, I've never been here before in my life.
It was mostly landowners didn't permit it to connect.
So I
But
think,
yeah,
forget, that might have been
the
built
church.
with V-Trans money. I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure that.
Well,
uh,
it seems like let's find out what this can do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point
I
of the
think
meeting.
we are kind of in a tricky situation in terms of pressure from the community in that it's now, going on what will be 2 years if we can't get this done this
Yeah.
summer.
Right.
Which is a long time for this bridge to be in this condition.
Yeah.
And so I think at this point, trying to pivot to let's build a, multi-million or $1 million bridge or something like that. It's gonna have those more rigorous standards, I think would be challenging.
What if we move forward with this and at the same time we say the inevitability of us having to have another solution given climate change and what flooding is gonna look like in this state is almost certain.
Yeah.
Start planning for it when it's not a crisis.
Right, let's write some grants while we're not in crisis.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because there are I think one of the benefits of like the outdoor rec boom post-COVID is that there are way more grants to support rec infrastructure than there were 10 years ago. And the state is investing very heavily in what they say is the outdoor rec economy, and I can't totally parse apart how that squares with just recreation or tourism. So that's a whole nother issue. It's mostly in my head, I think.
Right.
I think there's probably opportunity to think like down the road
Yeah.
and
Okay,
do
so-
this at
yeah.
the same time.
That's a valid point. We should continue that. I also want to make sure we can
Yeah.
do the CSWD while you're still here. So
Yeah.
real quick, any comments just seeing this, there's proposed fill, there's proposed plantings that could potentially help bind that soil a little bit, but to me, it's kind of a question of how much, you putting some more shrubs in. I mean, there's vegetation there now, but putting more shrubs in, substantially.
You're talking about bank stabilization.
Well, also beavers.
Right.
beavers.
We'll put up a sign, just say, please don't. build
Please
here."
relocate.
Let us
to-
know how it goes.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
At the next meeting.
no,
Yeah,
no
that's-
further
And
Hear,
comment.
maybe
hear
like
from the
the
regulators.
question from for them that they're not gonna be able to answer, but like, it's good to ask is. How long do you think this will last reasonably? Right,
Yeah,
like,
I don't think that they're not gonna make a guarantee because it's.
yeah, but maybe they would give you like some idea,
Mhm.
right, of like.
Right,
Cause they see things that have washed out, cause they're constantly bidding on them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like what would be like the max flood elevation that, this proposed structure could withstand?
and how crucial are these plantings? Do we need to like preemptively beaver baffle them or like, I don't know.
okay, so more information to come.
Let's transition over to.
Yeah, okay, so 15 minutes until.
Yeah.
You have to go, okay, so. Let me share it again. All right, so after our conversation with CSWD and Arrowwood last time, CSWD via Krebs and Lansing, the design firm an engineering firm has come back with a revised narrative and a revised site plan that partially takes into account the primary finding. And so hopefully you got a chance to look at that revised narrative letter, which attempts to address some of those elements, and the revised civil plan, and I'll share the plan right now so we can look at it. What I'm hoping that can happen in the next 15 minutes is this is going to go to DRB
Mhm.
next week. And I think what the DRB is going to want to know is, from the Conservation Commission's perspective, let's see. Does this compromise that's been proposed satisfy the recommendation of the Conservation Commission? Or would you prefer to leave your recommendation for a site configuration that meets the minimum Arrowwood requirement of 300, or minimum Arrowwood recommendation of 300-foot
Yep.
corridor? So basically your choice is to say, we think that based on the narrative letter and what we've heard and what we've seen, this is a compromise that represents the most realistic, most practical solution. Or do you want to say our recommendation is our recommendation? It's up to the DRB to decide that.
I thought a lot about this after reviewing the materials last night.
And reading the most recent Observer article about this. I don't know if you caught that,
I
but
did.
continue, please.
I did. So we spent a lot of time talking about our recommendations in our last meeting. I think that was a very robust and thorough discussion with the benefit of having been briefed by the biologist. And I guess I can recognize that they altered this site plan, but I think our recommendation needs to be our recommendation. And I think it would be I don't really know what the debate would be here. I don't want to undermine the biologist that the town paid for.
100%, yeah.
And, to the extent that the bylaws sort of reflect that ultimately this comes down to a DRB decision where like this is not reflecting what we've identified as a significant wildlife habitat area and corridor. And it's on the developer to sort of say that like, well, we looked at everything and I read the letter. That's that clearly is the audience. The letter is not that like we are meeting the significant wildlife habitat area. It's basically like we can't do anything more.
Yeah.
And I think that's the spirit of what they're trying to do. And so my preference would be to stay out of it and just let the DRB sort of review this material and let our recommendation stand.
Yep, I think that's.
I agree.
Yeah, any other comments?
I just don't feel like it's our purview to be like, this makes, or like, it's our purview to be like, here's what the
expectation is.
right, exactly, and here's what the biologist said, and as in terms of conservation, here's what we would like to see happen, and then it's the DRB's job to say, well, that's not possible given these other constraints. And so like, we're gonna be the compromising group, right? Like, we're not the compromising group. So I agree with that entirely.
And it seemed as though our recommendation was clear to the DRB at the last time that they spoke, because I saw some of the notes, and they very clearly some of the DRB members clearly reiterated what we had in our recommendation, and that it was an expectation for them to find revisions. So they've done some revisions, not a complete redesign as recommended, and so I agree, it's the DRB's job to figure out, is this enough?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I would say no, it does not meet with the biologist.
right.
Recommended, but it's not our job to compromise.
That recommendation was 300 feet, and I want to reflect the letter. And I think, where was that reflected, Dave? Was that actually it wasn't in the minutes.
It's in the DRB.
It was in the
page.
notes, right? It was actually it became the staff memo. And so the Conservation Commission staff report with recommendations. So I just want to review that.
Yeah, I'll bring that up.
Yeah, thank you for our record to say that this is still, like, we've all read the letter from CSWD, and let's just review our recommendation to be sure that we're on the same page.
I think that's another thing that you just said, Dave, that's important, that like, we don't want to set a precedent of like undermining the biologists because their estimation isn't feasible. Right, like I think our recommendation should always be with the best available information in terms of conservation. Like, that's our charge, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what we may individually think, like maybe in our minds, we're like, oh, well, clearly this is the best compromise, but like as the commission, I
Right.
think our charge is.
Yeah.
The question is, why
Pretty
do you hire a
specific.
biologist? You hire a biologist because
Right,
we're not a
right.
team of biologists. We're pretty good at interpreting input from a specialist.
Okay, so to review the recommendations, or the findings, it's a medium priority conservation site and IRAC map. Subject parcels within SWHA, the Arrowwood found that the SWHAs will be negatively impacted by the proposed development. That was made very clear. We determined that the secondary foreground viewshed area is not a significant concern. Watershed health has been discussed at great depth, and no farmland. So the recommendation was, as recommended by Arrowwood Environmental, that should be environmental, fix that. Typo AE. The site layout shall be reconfigured to provide for a minimum 300-foot buffer between the new clearing edge and the steep topographic drop-off west of the project site by utilizing flat land close to Redmond Road and south of the currently proposed site footprint. This will support compliance with WDV, etc. If meeting this objective is not possible in practice, the applicant shall clearly and persuasively demonstrate the site conditions and facility requirements to prevent such a reconfiguration while still providing for the widest buffer possible west of the new clearing edge. So that's your recommendation, and it'll essentially, from what you're saying, is we leave it as is, and it'll be the DRB's job to determine if B is
met.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. The applicant shall make a reasonable attempt to adopt the recommended SWHA impact mitigation measures. Blah, 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 or clearly indicate why such measures are not applicable or not practically achievable. And the final plan shall clearly mark visual auditory buffer plantings in accordance with the recommended impact mitigation measures.
So let's point to those on the new site plan, if we could.
Yes. I don't believe that there was anything in the new narrative letter about visual auditory buffer plantings.
I thought there was, or maybe I read the site plan after I read the letter, so I'm just confused.
Control F.
Yeah. And the final plan shall include a restoration and revegetation plan for the regraded clearing.
I didn't see anything about that.
Right. So this is the site plan. Oh, you're right, plant arborvitae around
Yeah.
the project to create noise dampening and lighting.
There you go.
So.
And so
that
they've
has
added
been added.
that
All the way around, basically.
all those little squiggly dots are arborvitae.
Yes,
Yeah, the idea is you create essentially a wall so that's dark
Yeah.
outside of that
Right.
for wildlife, as well as human beings, but mostly for wildlife.
so that would be addressing that requirement. This
They
is,
reduced an overhang on the west side and also moved the glass
Right.
and so on storage. to
the glass
south.
storage was here
Right.
and there's this road bumped out farther as well, so they were able to reclaim about. I think 60, 80 feet there.
Yeah.
I have to go back to look at what the original plan was, but it was not much more than. The, area on the opposite side of the property plus just a little bit.
Mhm.
And this was shrunk as well. So according to the narrative letter, the constraint is that this storm basin cannot move farther. That's what the claim is. And so, if they shifted the building, that couldn't move. It'll be up to the DRB to decide if the evidence is, for that state persuasive.
And what about the grading? So they're the grading and replanting. So are we talking about that space down there where it needs?
Oh, that is interestingly, seemed like it was removed from this. I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. There was previously
here.
some grading that was gonna be going on here.
Okay.
Oh,
To make way for a water line, and it's not clear if that will be happening. I don't see it on this site plan. Yeah, there is grading here at the entrance.
I know they wanted to change the visibility. They wanted it to be graded and also the vegetation not to be blocking visibility for
Right.
vehicles pulling in and out.
Yeah, I don't see anything about that. I think what's happening with regards to the installation of the water line is very much a conversation between CSWD and Public Works. So I don't know truly what kind of there is to weigh in on here.
I'm just reflecting on our
Mhm.
recommendation number 4.
Yeah,
A restoration and re-veg plan for the regraded clearing along Redmond Road. After its completion to prevent establishment of invasive
I think
species.
that was, in my mind, that was up closer to the entrance road. It was like they wanted to basically cut stuff so there was a line of visibility for vehicles that are like approaching the road from the facility.
yeah, it was called out in the Arrowwood report. So let me see real quick if we look at the original application materials. Oh, this is the
I
revised.
think regardless, like the point is like the recommendations that we previously made, we'd like to keep.
Yeah, and there's not a quorum to change them anyway, so.
Yeah.
But I think it is very useful to note, because I'm sure that I will get a question as to how the Conservation Commission feels about their the revisions. That I can still represent that the consensus of the members that were there was that the recommendations are the recommendations.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
So just before we move on, and before Kim is leave, so this little tail here was the area that was marked
Mhm.
as grading for the water line.
Yeah, looks like they basically have removed most of
And
it.
that seems like it is not in the new site plan, so I'm not entirely sure what it looks there, but that's what was
That
called out
doesn't
in
make
Arrowwood.
sense. They would still have to put water in there, so. Okay, I totally missed that part of the discussion. We just didn't talk about it
Yeah,
3 weeks ago, a month ago, whatever.
right.
But I still think that recommendation certainly stands. I can't imagine that this site plan changes.
Was that related to road upgrades? Did they say something about? No.
I'm not sure.
No, because they already had big trucks going back to the. Okay, never mind.
So,
All right,
okay,
Good.
I think the recommendations firmly stand. We don't have a quorum to vote to change them, but I don't think we would change them even if we did have a quorum.
Yeah.
Is the sort of consensus of the members here.
You'd have to have 4 North people.
You
Here,
have to have
they disagree.
everybody who's not here disagree with them.
Yeah,
Which, let's just be honest, is not
We tend to be, yes, a consensus.
Have we ever split a vote?
I'm a Glazer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long Glazer.
I just
Did I
think
miss
that's
that? Is that?
No, you
That
were.
was before me, so.
Yeah, you were here.
I don't remember us disagreeing.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a tough one.
It was healthy though. It was healthy.
Yeah, it was like not contentious because I don't even
It's a healthy
remember.
disagreement.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so you need to go. Kim?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for the use of your orange pen.
You're so welcome. You can keep it if you'd like
Like,
it.
who makes an orange ballpoint
Look at
pen?
that. Terrible.
The benefit is that when I'm looking at this later, it's orange, so I'm gonna be like, oh, right, tell Alan about wood duck boxes.
Yes, I don't think I have it. I have this. I was at like a planning retreat and we got these fluorescent papered notebooks with like bright colors. And it would have matched that. It
You
would
could
have.
not even see it.
No, it
It's
would've just been like-
disappearing.
Oh my gosh, all right.
All right, take
See you.
All
care.
right, thanks, Kim.
All right, see you, Kim.
Sorry that I'm
Thank you for being here.
failing on
No, it's
the
all right.
already
No.
slim.
That's all right. Yeah,
Have a good one.
It's summer.
yeah. it's
Yeah,
fine.
it is summer.
Still.
Waiting,
Right,
everyone's
so-
going on vacation.
So Dave and Reed, that leaves us with 45 minutes, and I think that's actually perfect. We're back on schedule, so we can take a look at we can discuss the orientation package
Yeah,
outline and talk about the CBU projects.
I also have an update on our tribute to Gary.
Great, very
I
exciting.
I wanted to add that to the discussion.
Is this, are we do we wanna end the meeting and just have like, none of this needs to go into the records, so I just didn't know if we wanted to.
Let's do the orientation package.
Yeah, we may as well.
Yeah. And
Okay. So let's.
I suppose our other members who aren't here could watch the recording to hear the conversation.
but we can talk about our tribute to Gary after the meeting.
That's right. Top secret.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, so so this is the landing page for the Williston Conservation Commission. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit.
So while Dave is doing that, I'll just say he and I had a pretty good back and forth in July about what we discussed as a group. We would all like to sort of see be both publicly available for our own resources, but also what would be great for the public to be able to see about what we do. And so we kind of iterated on the outline that was generally talked about in the meetings. And then Dave came up with the first draft. I made some additional revisions, reoriented it a little bit. You kind of signed off on it, said looks good. And then I passed it off to you to sort of see what you wanted to do with it.
Yeah,
Cool.
great. So I looked at that with an eye towards remodeling our Conservation Commission site, kind of as we talked about. Real quick, I did make a small edit to this blurb up here. I don't know if this reads, but I added in the term WCC because we use commission a lot, and we also
Mhm.
mentioned the planning commission is a little vague.
Mm.
So
WCC is useful because I'm not aware of any other.
yeah, I feel like we say the commission a lot, the Conservation Commission, just repeating that over and over again. I felt like it was helpful to put that acronym there.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if this reads, but I changed, instead of just saying the WCC over and over again, I changed it to we. So the WCC advises the Select Board, Development Review Board, and Planning Commission on matters related to the town's natural resources. We review development proposals for natural resource impacts, promote conservation through education, ecological assessment, and management planning, and provide recommendations and advice on the use of the town environmental reserve fund. So I retooled that last sentence to include more examples of what the Conservation Commission does
Yeah,
and to put it in that kind of.
I like that. The only thought that came to mind as you read that paragraph was, I know that our role in the development review process is a point of confusion, both for people considering joining and also sometimes for us. We have to be reminded of exactly how we fit in, and certainly the public. So I was wondering whether, when it says that we advise those boards and commissions, is there a way there that we can say, like, at pre-app and discretionary permit, but it also, that doesn't encompass, specific plan.
So we get into that, we do get
So
into that.
Maybe that's
And,
further
and,
down.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're trying to do here, Dave, which is that actually sort of create a much broader set of like, this is everything that we do. We advise all of these commissions and all of these
Yeah.
boards and yeah, because we get into that stuff.
Good.
Yeah, prior to that, I didn't save the version that was before, but it mentioned the Development Review Board, and then it didn't have as many I think all it mentioned was the advising the DRB and Planning Commission, and then the ERF. Didn't really mention the other stuff, so.
And should morning be bolded, since we're one of the few committees or commissions that don't meet in the evening? That's, I mean, it's kind of like a silly thing, but I sort of think
Yeah,
people don't know.
especially if you're used to the select board schedule of 7 p.m.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah,
So-
people see that and they're like, right, it's the evening meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a bunch of things we can talk about. You know, one question even before we get into orientation stuff is, it's a choice that has been made to have bios. And I noticed that the CC is the only
Look at
commission.
that handsome young man.
Yeah, look at that.
Who is that?
Yeah, you
Look
are.
how much more younger I was.
So that is a
Now I don't want to put my picture up there because if I sit on this committee for 30 years like Gary, then it'll be like some picture of me skiing in the woods and.
if we look at most of the other landing pages, they don't do that. They just include a list and term limits of the folks involved. And
That would be helpful actually to know, or if, yeah, sometimes we have questions come up about like, wait, when does Eric's term end? And things like
the
that.
Energy Committee does include links, but they just go to contact information. So
I do
that,
think it's important that people be able to contact. So like I've recently wanted to contact members of the library board of trustees. And you cannot, that I have been able to find any way to find any contact information for anybody on that.
I do put my own staff that'd be my recommendation. I don't think
People
that-
don't understaff.
I don't think that anyone should be obligated to put their personal emails up on the town website. Since we have staff capacity, I think that's a useful buffer,
Okay.
Yeah.
unless someone is willing to do that.
I agree with that in concept, and then in practice, I've definitely had boards and committees that I've wanted to get in touch with, and the staff person has either been non-responsive or been a blocker to actually getting information, and so I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to, like, this is supposed to be a public group, and yet I can't get in touch with anybody except a staff person who is non-responsive.
Yeah,
And like, what if you're on vacation and somebody wants to talk to somebody?
Right, or there's, you know-
And then, yeah, so anyway, I think about that and I think about the practice of it. Perhaps it's nice to have a backup contact, primary contact, and, you know, if unable to reach.
Good, Mike.
I mean, we could do that. We could have, you know, a designated contact person.
Or maybe the chair at any given time has their.
Yeah, or I mean, we could even set up just a Gmail account, you know. For something like that, or I could talk to the town about
Having like
potentially
a
putting together
WCC
a
at
WCC,
Williston.
yeah.
Yeah, something like, I mean, I don't know that I think about the overhead involved in both creating and then maintaining and providing access to and stuff, an account like that, and I still sort of would lean toward
Just
something
person.
simpler, like listing the staff contact and then maybe saying, you know, if staff can't be reached, here's the chair's
Mhm.
contact information, and that way it's just one person and
Yeah.
somebody who's in a position where they know what's going to be on agendas and priorities and all that stuff, as opposed to just a random number. So anyway, just,
Okay,
it would be nice for people to always
Yeah.
have more than one way to contact us.
yeah, okay. I mean, that's reasonable, so, I mean, I think it's just a matter of personal preference, I don't wanna force anyone into leaving a contact
Yeah.
information, but.
Yeah,
So
I
one-
agree with you on that we should not say it's required to provide your contact information, so.
So we can wait till we have the full group, but noting that this hasn't been kept up with, you know, there's no bio for
Or David's.
Dave, there's no bio for Lynn presently. So I think it's worth just kind of refreshing and saying, do we want to do this? Do we want to be the only
I think-
commission that does bios and
I think we could do away with the bios,
photos?
but,
Conservation commissions are also like way more like a. If you look at other commissions, they have a vibe and they're more of like a let's provide our bios kind of commissions, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
we're a
like,
little bit more
it's,
relaxed than that,
Yeah.
maybe, so
we're
I
the
do
tree
like the
huggers of
term
the.
thing. I think it would be really helpful to list like through what year are these people serving? It would help us as a commission for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the idea of getting the terms. I have no idea when my term is up.
Right, I don't remember. I know mine is renewed recently. I probably have
Okay.
another 2 years.
Yeah, I could track down that information. But we're thinking moving towards no bios.
Yeah, it also it prevents the issue of like them not being current or somebody not wanting to put one out there and then everybody but one person has them and I think it's just better to keep
Okay.
it simple.
That's fine, we can certainly do that. Okay,
They can look
so,
us up on LinkedIn.
so my initial thought, so we'll look at the full outline that Dave and I have put together for now in a bit. But my initial idea was that basically what we're putting together is the orientation package we house in a series of links or sort of subpages. So I've currently organized those. You'll see it's very similar to the outline into reference library, what we do, and then development reviews as one category. And as sort of an example of what this might look like, I put this, so the reference library is just informational links. So we have guiding documents, enabling statute.
So it's state statute that
That's the state statute.
says what a conservation
this
commission
what a
is.
Conservation commission does, all of our powers and duties. Which would actually be really useful to review as a group.
Yes,
So all the development review stuff we do is just one of the 11 items, or it's like one part of one of the 11.
yeah,
I think it's this one. Cooperate with local legislative
Legislative
bodies,
bodies.
commission, zoning board of adjustment on matters affecting local environment. Oh, or it might be this one. We're providing advisory environmental evaluation. So might be useful to review this at some point.
good.
That our 1987 goal statement document, which is pretty much just enumerating the same exact points.
Yeah,
And then
You put something like that up and then you're
So-
inviting, they're like, okay, well, this hasn't been updated in 40 years, so should we maybe revisit it? Yeah, I'm gonna have.
No, that's fine.
Do this is.
So other things we've talked about having like the relevant
I call you
relevant town plan chapters, links to
I just did terrible.
annual reports.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
And then a section for general resource, this sort of like orientation, you're the new member. What are the resources that you would have liked to have read and educate yourself on in advance? So I put this in just this kind of placeholder. One of the items was like a 30 by 30. This is the VHCB site that talks about Act 59, 30 by 30 and the Vermont Conservation Plan and what's
Great.
going on with that. So
That's perfect.
the
That's
idea
great.
of kind of compiling resources around those kinds of key areas.
So the only comment I have so far on this, which is great, the guiding documents. So I know when I scan that list, that the top one is how the state has given us direction, and then the next one is how the town envisioned what their conservation commission would do within the state statute. And then the next three are documents that we help to shape and enforce. But I guess those are not the bylaws, those are the town plan chapters.
No, those are, I mean,
Yeah, bylaws would come.
So I think,
separately.
yes, I think guiding documents is good, never mind, my comment is, you're
Okay.
not, keep going.
But this can all be modified.
I just wanted to show, like, my initial reaction was
Yeah.
like, I know what those things are and why they're stacked on top of each other, but would it be better to have something that says like. State statute,
Yep,
town goal,
yep.
and then like town plan, and then underneath that have the bullets, just to give people that
Right.
structure of understanding the layers of.
Mhm.
we did have the bylaws reference, right?
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
We wanted
we'll
to,
get that.
because we wanted to get to those.
So then the last third in this reference, we had the idea of linking to like country parks and conservation area, sort of
Mhm.
Williston stuff. When I was looking at that, I noticed that that's basically
basically that.
what this natural resources section was designed to do. It has like trail. And this kind of is ripe for a major overhaul.
Oh, yeah.
So it might be the kind of thing where all we really need is that link to the natural resources homepage.
And then from
And
there,
then-
see everything.
Yeah, from there, we can address all of those things. So I just put this together as an example of what this could look like.
Mhm.
And what my ultimate goal would be, I can tinker with this all day, but I would love to kind of pass this back to some folks who'd be willing to work on, for example, refining these lists or gathering the
Yeah.
resource links, whatever. So, okay, so that's an example of what it could look like. Took me a little while to figure that out, but
I don't think you want to trust me with the town website.
well, no, I'll be doing all the website stuff.
Okay.
But the content, what we're gonna put on it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the outline. Let me go back to.
Although it would be great to get some analytics around who actually clicks on these links.
Me,
You're right,
right, it's gonna be
Right.
like.
the members and who else, right?
Yeah. yeah,
Unique,
Reed Willis.
unique site visits, not frequency of visits.
But we can certainly again revisit this topic when we have more folks. But let's just take a look at that master outline that we have for the time.
Perfect. I didn't even see that was at the bottom.
I just added it.
Oh, okay.
Yes. To it, since it's a work in progress, I hadn't initially put in there, but.
Uh-huh.
So this was that highlighting the WCC's role. Oh, sorry, that's the bottom. That's not it. Okay, so founding documents, reference links. That's essentially what I called the reference library. So we mentioned state statute, historical records. I wasn't
Annual
quite sure
reports.
what fit in there.
What I was thinking of that one, Dave, is all of the records that we frequently use in these meetings about like. There are gonna be things that you have access to because you have the town password,
Mhm.
but like to the extent that like you had a great image during the last review of the farm map from like 1920.
Oh, yeah, got it. Historical records. Okay, yeah. Historic, sort of like tools.
Yeah,
Like if you wanted to go learn about the history of an area, what tools does the Conservation Commission know about that maybe somebody doesn't?
Okay, so that could be its own subheading.
Yeah,
That's
and-
not necessarily found a guiding
yeah.
document.
I mean, it could also have been referencing things like the historical goal statement.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
thinking about. Okay, no, that's great.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, past annual reports, I figured we can have a big list.
Okay.
Links to key town plan session,
Yeah.
where does 30 by 30 come from and how does Williston support? So with things like this, there's sort of two ways we could approach it. Is one, we could find a website that kind of already summarizes this well.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I just linked to the Act 59 VHCP
Yeah.
site. The other thing is, for some of
I
these
think-
topics, we could have a CC member write up a little
Right.
blurb of like,
Well, it's in,
how does this?
it's in the town plan though. I mean, we kind of wrote that,
We
right?
did, what's not in there is like why, so we're 30 by 50, so that's something that needs to be maybe like an explanation somewhere that says. Why is Williston aiming for 30% conserved by 2050? And how, like, why did we set that?
Did we fall on 30? I thought we fell on like 15.
I think 15 is what the current,
We're at 16%
We're
now.
at 16.
15% of current conserved area, formally conserved.
Yep, and then how we define 30 by 50 depends on whether it
Right.
starts with the state's definitions they decide to go with. But then we have decisions to make, like, do we count open space
Mhm.
parcels as we shoot for 30%?
Yeah, it's a moving target, but let's go through the outline.
Yeah.
Let's go through the outline.
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
Okay, so then this whole area is what I thought could probably be covered by the an upgraded natural resource
Yes.
section.
agreed.
Parks,
So-
open spaces, trails.
Yeah, so that's most of the stuff that came up on this first bit. And then the second part was what we're calling about us, and I sort of reframed this as to the what we do. So I was thinking that first page would be more of like resources and links that are not necessarily in our own voice. in the voice of the CC.
The exception to that was
Yeah.
the areas where the WCC is focused on improving public access. Because that's not really focused on the website, and that gets to Brown Owl Mountain,
Yeah,
Village Connector, and
yeah. Well, I think that could probably be enumerated better on the natural resources site, because there's sort of a couple. There's a page that lists a bunch of sites, and one of them is Brown Owl Mountain. Others are
yeah.
areas that are more
By the way,
infrastructure.
I'm now gonna start referring to the Jacob Krantz as Big Bend.
I hadn't seen that. Oh, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like it too.
I like Big Bend.
Did you come up with it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it is a Big Bend in the Missouri River. It's
Yeah,
pretty simple.
and it's very like not gonna create a controversy with any like
Yeah.
Yeah.
just Big Bend.
yeah,
And
that's
it's
cool.
not named after some old white person.
Yeah, exactly. I'm past Jacob Krantz and I'm on to Big Bend.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so then when I was looking at what was kind of proposed for this area, about us descriptions, this to me was all things that would be kind of in the voice of the Williston Conservation Commission, talking about the work of the Conservation Commission. So that's why I framed it as what we do.
Mhm.
So this description in more depth about how we are involved in development review, what it means that we're making recommendations to the select board, what the work with the ERF is. So these are all essentially blurbs that they could either be
Yeah.
long or short. This could be a bulleted list and each one has a 1 sentence description, or each of these could be, a link you click and someone's written a paragraph with a picture, that talks about how the Conservation Commission is involved in each of this. And that kind of dovetails in with this, what is the scope of work for a commissioner? But I essentially envision this what we do section as blurbs or links or mini essays written in the voice of members of the Conservation Commission about the work that you do. And this will serve really kind of the meat of the orienting a new member to the work that you do, and also anyone who's coming in from the public and wondering about what happens in these meetings.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Where if you just go to a website that just has a bunch of links, then it kind of creates this like, what is this?
Yeah.
But if you go to a website that has like too long of an essay, it's like too long to read.
Yeah,
Right? And so
exactly.
I personally see this as being like if there's a link to the development review process that the town has already developed, then let's provide it. But generally, if we can just say in like 2 sentences that like
Super short paragraph.
right, like super short paragraph, 2 to 3 sentences, we engage with a town paid biologist on significant wildlife habitat areas in the pre-app and the discretionary permanent stages, exactly.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, and then I think there is an infographic that was created a few years ago, around this exact issue of like, when do the different committees get involved? Hopefully that's around, because infographics are great.
Emily showed that to us.
Right.
I was gonna make a comment about that section there too, the development review, recommendations for bylaws. Because what we are working on for recommendations changes regularly, I would prefer these super short paragraphs, if that's what we're calling them, stay out of the specific topics. Like, I wouldn't say we're working on drafting bylaw amendments for blah, 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 because that's going to change every 6 months, every 8 months or something like that. Rather, I would like to see something that says, as we have lessons learned from enforcing the bylaws, we work on recommended bylaw amendments, which we submit to the planning commission and select.
I think that's generally how I was interpreting that this would be, but then embedded in that would just be a link to the bylaws.
Mhm.
So that, it's clear that like, okay, here's the 2 to 3 sentence, like, this is what we do.
But
But
if you want to
then
read more, these are the sections that we engage with.
it's more like if I'm reading that, I say, okay, you're gonna engage with the bylaws. That's also my useful link to like get to the town bylaws.
Yeah,
Rather than having to
finding
navigate
it,
it,
yeah,
because it is hard to find.
Yeah.
insight. It's like
So
buried in
that's
there.
reasonable. Yeah, I kind of see this and the second bullet point here as the same. But these are just framed by two different ideas. I think one was Dave's and one was Eric's.
Mhm.
But they're both essentially, how do we communicate the scope of work of the commission or a commissioner to the public or to a new member?
Yeah.
In our own words. And so I think that's, yeah, we're really,
Okay.
it makes sense. We're defining a list of the things that we're involved with in short words, in our own words,
Yeah.
short paragraphs in our own words.
And where possible, link that you can go
Yeah.
further if you want to learn.
Exactly. So with regards to development review, that's consistently come up as, an area that is complex enough that it might even need its own section, and that was the last part of the outline, is actually just bumping all that DRB stuff into its own section. And that's where we can have the flow chart and the infographics and the, links to the key bylaw chapters and some of the more technical information about, for example, we talked about having someone write a tutorial article, whether that's me or a member of the commission, on what are the types of buffers, with some pictures, tutorials and wetland types. So these kinds of resources that are there, right? Calling out, what is an SWHA,
Yeah.
exactly. So explainers on all these items.
Those have been questions that we've gotten from maybe not the like professional applicants like CSWD or even like Glazer, where they bring in someone who's like
Like
gone
a
through.
property owner would definitely
Yeah.
ask this question.
We've definitely gotten these types of like, from like a general owner, especially in like the rural part, where they're just trying to like subdivide. And like, what is the 10, what do you mean 10 acres and,
Right.
Open space? What does that mean? So I think that could be very helpful with that.
Yeah.
Point of view.
So that's the outline. And
It's great.
yeah, that's what I kind of imagined, is that each one would be its own page, so that's
Yeah.
the sort of reference library, just sort of links and resources. And then the next two are the ones that require, of course, more work.
Yeah.
This one, the middle one, I think is really, I kind of want that's gonna be mainly in the words of the commission. And then, potentially putting together this timeline of important CC accomplishments. ERF, I think, can just be linked to, from this, it has its own page. And then I see this third area as one where there'd probably be a little more homework for me in terms of putting together some of these tutorials.
And maybe trying not to reinvent the wheel if there is a resource out there.
Right, that's
Say a sentence and provide the link and say you can read more about,
This could almost be like a resource for applicants. Section.
yeah.
And that was one other thing that is not here, and that is, we are pretty like soft on Robert's rules, but like that is how boards and committees are supposed to operate, and most people have no idea that they even exist.
Yeah,
And
put
so-
that in the
There's some
guide
really,
document.
there's some really good like Robert's Rules for Dummies type resources out there that just, they give you like the basics, like, hey, there's a chair. The chair's job is to make sure that the meeting flows and that people are heard, but nobody is
Starts and finishes.
dominating and starts and finishes the meeting. So just like some sort of resource to say, as a town body, we do we do operate under Robert's rules.
Quorums.
And quorums and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's another kind of category of things that's not specific to WCC. So it could be something that might be useful to have a page that all of the commissions or committees and boards can link to, and say, if you're thinking of attending a meeting and you're wondering like, how do these things run? This is it.
Great. I like that idea, and I would like to conclude this section by just saying, like, this is not a urgent, like, we don't need to get all of this done. I think that would just be like a make work kind of thing for us to do, but like, I love the idea of plucking away at it.
Yeah,
Getting a couple of these up and running. I mean, you've already sort of added some pages.
yeah,
So
no, I
that's
think that's great. I mean, maybe what we can do, if you're willing, before next time, is just focus on that. Just this first category,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm calling reference library, and just flesh that out a little more, for example, we can have a link to Robert's rules, under the guiding documents.
Yeah,
We can
that'd be a good place for it.
think about what else might go in that sort of general reference links category. Doesn't necessarily have to be just that first page, but any ideas you want to jot down, links you want to compile or something, you can send to me and I can, before next time, I'll make a landing page for these second two as well. And I'll start to just scaffold in the skeleton of what will live there eventually, and we'll just start
Okay.
picking it apart, as you said.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for your work on this.
yeah.
Really, really good.
Okay, so that gives us just 15 minutes to talk a little bit about these CVU reports, and Reed, I don't know if you want to kind of brief us on what those are all about and kind of where you see the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission intersecting with that work.
Yeah, and like, I didn't have a chance to read through these last night, but is that kind of what we should be doing?
Yeah, so I think it would be good for every commission member to read them. They're not long. I would say, half an hour, 35 minutes, you could sit down and read all of them in detail. They are, I think, of decent quality for high school level work, which is great. There's, even some of them have, some maps. They have some good storytelling quality to them. Of course, they have different authors for each one. And they had varying levels of like time spent with their land steward contact. There's 4 different reports from 4 different sites. They are sites that are complementary to the reports that were done by UVM students a few years ago. So we had, I want to say 4 or 5 from that, and now we have another 4. So it helps us build on that. There is a story map with those UVM ones. I didn't know whether we wanted to think about in the future adding these to that story map to say, the additional land steward interviews conducted by CBU students in 2024, 2025. There weren't any like major oh, we need to do something about that things that I saw come up in the reports. But I do think it may be an opportunity to do some outreach to them now that they've had some students with through the Conservation Commission's work. They've had some students do some outreach with them. I'm sure it's gotten these land stewards interested in at least thinking about these issues about what is the future of my land. Like the Johnson Farm, I don't know that we've had any conversations with them. They've gone through sort of an initial round of conservation planning for their property. They have current use going on. Yeah, those were my comments on kind of the general thing. I thought the Lake Iroquois one is really valuable because I think Lake Iroquois is one of those things that because it has its own advisory, it's the Lake Iroquois Recreation District. So because they already have a body that is doing planning and thinking about it, we often sort of Lake Iroquois, but that's taken care of sort of. And so I thought it was good to get the report on the Lake Iroquois area, so that was good. And we already interact with Chapin a ton, so kind of our property and the town meadow that's adjacent, we're covered in that one. And then the Isham Farm, it was a topic. I mean, everybody in Williston, I think, is familiar with the Isham Farm, but they may not understand necessarily how does it actually exist and sustain itself. So that, I think they were good topics, good write-ups. I didn't see anything in these that seemed like, oh, that might not be something we want to put out to the public, but I did want conservation. And David have a chance to like read them in full and to make sure nobody else has like, any concerns about publishing these. The students, I asked the teachers whether we had permission to publish this work, because I know student work isn't always able to be put out publicly, and they said, yes, these are, you have permission to do that.
Okay.
So we were able to put them into the minutes, and we can, if we want to,
It's cool.
put them out on the website.
Yeah.
In some format.
Now, Reed, was this a project that you organized with the teachers? Was this, or
Yeah.
was this something that was kind of independent? Teachers were encouraging students to do these research?
Yeah, we started this, I guess, before you joined.
Okay.
But yeah, we actually had at one point, the teachers were on the call with us.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
I can't point to when these projects were specifically identified, but you gave
It
them
was
a
like
list of like,
October, November.
Yeah.
We actually created a list of, I think, 12 different
Yeah, it was a lot.
projects that we
Mhm.
thought a high school level could contribute to, and they included things like educational signage about beavers and
Mhm.
creating it or manufacturing it in their fabrication studio at the school. All the way through doing these interviews and
Mhm.
and other things. So we have a hefty backlog if we want to engage with CBU staff again this year to say, you know, what about picking another one off this list, or did the students really enjoy it? And there's, because we could certainly put them in touch with more property owners and or land stewards that are doing work around town for next year. But I think it went okay. I would say I thought that I got to see them come and do the interview with my dad because I was home at the time, so I got to hear that conversation and see them go out on their walk and stuff. They were excellent in that case. And I think the final write-ups were okay. The piece that I was not satisfied with was I really had wanted more back and forth. Like I told staff at CVU, I was like, I'll come, I'd love to come in and talk to your students before they embark on doing the work to answer questions and about who the Conservation Commission is, how this work is going to support what we're doing, to kind of like, right, what is the direction that this work we're going to do is contributing to? And they didn't invite me in, and then they said, oh, we've already reached out to the recommended people and stuff. I was okay, all right, then. And then I was like, you know, if they'd like to talk with somebody as they're developing a report to make sure that it's gonna hit the mark on what we, and they're like, oh, we already completed the reports recently. So I was like,
they go at
okay.
their own pace, I guess.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it happened on its own, which I imagine is in part because it's hard to, you know, they only see these students once or twice a week and they're trying to just get the thing done. And they did have an English teacher working with them for the writing aspect as well as the science teachers working with them on like land conservation issues to figure out what to ask for interview questions. So I had hoped there'd be a little bit more interactive because I think it would have been really rich for them and it would have helped us. Maybe there might have been some things where I'd be like, maybe that question isn't so helpful for what we're trying to ask the landowners, but maybe this other question should be added to your list for interviews, or having some consistency between the 4 reports could have been helpful. So I think there's opportunities if we want to work with the CBU students again on another project this coming school year. I think it would be good to just talk with the staff members who are going to be overseeing it, because I think there was a missed opportunity to have a little bit more engagement throughout the process.
So as a result of that, and a totally reasonable and almost expected at this level kind of
Yeah.
of work, I think I'll review these with the eye towards, we've got some great resources on our website for storyboards, that, have been, I still go to some of those for reference points. So ultimately, that's sort of the thought, is like, which of these are sort of valuable enough and sort of comprehensive enough that they can sort of have a place on the website as being like a historical sort of
Yeah.
documentation.
A record that was created.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from what you're describing, that made me, I mean, I think, 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 I think it was just kind of clue the idea of what, somewhere in those documents, we should, or in our online resources, we should have a list of,
Yeah.
you know, studies and.
Exactly, it kind of falls under that
Research
category of studies and
projects,
research
yeah.
projects.
Yeah. I also noticed that the ISHM report included the full transcript, which is a very interesting form of like historical preservation of just having like an interview, not just sort of summarized, but actually fully
Yeah,
documented. And so that does sort of have an interesting historical value in itself. It's sort of like, you know,
Mhm.
someone could read this in 50 years and basically have a totally different takeaway from it by just, you know, reading the full transcript. And I think that's an interesting aspect.
Yeah, that is interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You notice that.
Yeah, different groups chose different routes. I think they used a recording device and a transcription tool. So
Yeah.
they, like, loaded the audio in and it spat out a transcription.
Right. It would have been nicer if they had labeled who the speaker 2 and 1, 2, and 3 were, but you know, whatever.
Mhm. So anyway, I think
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Got it. So one question I have is it sort of the idea with forming this relationship with CVU is that the Conservation Commission kind of has these ideas of research projects that it would like to be done, and over time,
to pick away at them.
yeah, they're essentially generating a library of.
And in the process,
I would love someone to do Brownell Mountain.
right, yeah. And in the process, we get some resources that we can put on our website. We get some answers or insights that the commission can use to make decisions, like about ERF prioritization or about like how do we approach rural landowners about these issues. And then also the students get real world projects, which I know is like priceless. When you're like a high school student, you're like, I don't want to do another essay just because somebody said to do an essay, but like, hey, go talk to this person and produce something that the town can use is like a lot more motivational. So that's good.
On that point, it's kind of like I think of like, you know, let's just, without naming names, there's public opposition to some like really core necessary upgrades that the town needs, whether that's bike paths or ERF or whatever. And having like a generous interpretation of like the landowners who are involved in conservation and providing public access can sort of like reduce the stigma or the concerns over like, oh my God, what does it mean if I let people on my property to like take a hike or something like that, you know? And I think just generally like that's a great thing to just like increase the visibility and like take away the boogeyman a little bit, that like
It's like a soft touch thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
soft power.
Yeah, it engages people, it makes it less more clear and less it takes away the fear of like the unknown. People be like, oh no, these are actual interviews with people about their land.
It's great.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess my only other comment would be, I think it's really cool to foster a relationship with the high school, you know, local community. There also could be other options if there are topics or research projects that maybe you'd want to see sort of a deeper or higher level on. We could, you know, with Kim's connections at Rubenstein, for example, there could be undergraduate classes that we could potentially work with.
And that's been our historical method of operation is we start there, but there's only so many projects they can do, and some of the projects don't require, like, they're not to a level that's challenging enough or interesting enough to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't mean that to say that should replace this, but just that
it's nice to have a list of both. Like, these are projects that would be best for like a graduate or undergraduate class, and then these are things that maybe are a little bit lower level and we should be engaging with high school level students on, even if we don't get a great product out of it.
Great to have connections to all of that level.
Right? Yeah, it's also
and some of those students may be future conservation commission members, or like it's kind of investing in just a land ethic as a community. Is students should be working on stuff. It's not just for adults.
Yeah,
that's kind of my point.
I think when I was in college, I would have loved to have done hydrology of that beaver dam. Like that would have been a project.
A real problem.
Yeah, and then just like also just creating like a map of it, like, cause I was into hydrology and geology, right? So it's like, that would be a cool
Mm.
undergrad level project is like, what is the hydrologic and geomorphic conditions that make that a like almost near permanent beaver territory and habitat? And what areas can we anticipate, you know, it would, that the habitat might expand to? That's that's an undergrad slash graduate level research project. But like
Super interesting.
super interesting, right? Great for that level, but like interviewing landowners and creating like a storyboard of Williston's history. Perfect for the high school
Yeah.
group, you know? Good entry level, so awesome project, Reed, thank you.
Great. So Reed, would you like these for the time being, what you're saying, to sort of live in the agenda for now?
Exactly, I think I want everybody on the commission to have read them before we
Yeah.
post them somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's do it. Let's, thanks for the intro. Now I know what to read and review for, and we'll put it on the agenda again with hopefully a bigger group discussion.
This is probably the right time of year to talk with those same teachers about what are their classes for the year, what are their topics for the year. So I can take an action item to just do that first email and just say, hey, would you like to have a phone call sometime to talk about your plans for the year?
Okay, great. And just to confirm, so the Conservation Commission members are reading these reports with an eye towards, do they reach a certain standard where it's worth including them in a list of, long-term
Yeah, and-
documents? And is there anything in them that was identified for follow-up?
Mhm.
Is that the?
Yeah, is there any?
Yeah, and if you would sort of, man, where's that storyboard? Yeah, so like. Yeah, for example, the UVM Field Naturalist Program 2022 website under current conservation initiatives. It's like, is it of the similar, obviously it's not of the same caliber, but like, yeah, should it be considered for basically permanent hosting? Okay, it's 9 o'clock, let's adjourn. The meeting. And we'll stop the recording.
And Gary,
So, yeah.